I'm Adam Goldston.
I'm Ryan Goldston.
We're the co-founders of APL. The beautiful shoes and image you see behind you. Today we're going to talk about the journey that we've been on for the last 15 years, building the luxury performance category, and how, I'm sure we'll talk all the way through it, from where we started to where we wanted to go, to where we're at, to where we'll be in the future. So those are the things that we'll cover today. And the key main pillars of it is how we started really, really small. We were two guys in a 60 square foot office when we started, and we started our dorm room in college. But social, physical, and then retail have been really, really important to how we've built the brand and built this category that didn't exist before, which is luxury performance.
Well, selfishly, I've spent a lot of money on these shoes. These are arguably, what's the average cost of the shoe?
So our number one selling shoe is $320. Average order value varies between $267 to $293 on a given month. So we're expensive. We're the most expensive in the space, but obviously
by design. Was it at the gates at the beginning? You're like, that's where we're going.
Yeah, we wanted to own a category that didn't exist, which was luxury performance. We felt like you could either enter at the top or enter at the bottom. And we had no resources and no desire to enter at the bottom. So we felt we could build something at the top which didn't exist. And building the top of a pyramid takes a really long time and a lot of effort. But the thing that we always thought about is the easiest way to get where you're going is one step at a time and stay singularly focused on this goal. So that was by design. It wasn't that we wanted to charge X amount of dollars. It's that we wanted to be the best. And if you want to be the best, you have to create the best product, the best imagery, tell the best stories, have the best connection with your consumers. And so that was the idea. And if you did all that, we believed that people would pay the most money for the product.
For me, it's you can't have a brand unless you're actually making sales, so people can actually have buy-in to the brand. So I always go, get some sales before you focus on the brand. You don't need a fancy deck or fancy things. Are you on the other side, or you're like, no, we're starting brand first?
We started with the technology. So we started with creating a technology that could instantly make you jump higher.
Wait, this is the thing that got,
this
is what put it on,
Yeah,
right?
this is what put it on, and
okay,
got banned by the NBA. And so for us, that was our point of view, is how we looked at it. And I think the most important part, and obviously this is what we've done, this is, to this point, our life's work. And when we've thought about it, is we identified a category that we wanted to create. That then informed the decisions that we made as a brand and a company. And the reason why we started first by creating a technology was we had authenticity in this category, and we were going to start in a micro niche and then grow from there, so that we meant something to the people that were coming into the brand. And so when dreaming it up, if you're really trying to go after something big, you have to understand maybe what that journey might look like, the different proof points along the way. And for us, it was luxury performance that we were going to create, and we started with shoes that instantly make you jump higher.
But to the point that you're making, I do believe that, because I've seen it happen both ways, but when you want to build something that you could ultimately see being big, you have to take those steps in the beginning. So I do understand the aspect of no money in, your brand doesn't mean anything, but think about every single time those first people experience the product or the brand. We didn't spend $1 on paid acquisition for the first 10 years of the brand because we put the brand first, and so we grew it 100% organically first 10 years of the business. So I do think if you have no investors, it's easier to do. We're 100% independent, so that made it easier in the beginning because we cared about the brand even though not a single other person in the world did. So we did put that first, and it is a slower journey to get there, but the payoffs of that, in our opinion, are much greater over a long period of time because we wanted to build something dynastic. Our goal was not to build something to flip it. It was to build something that we were incredibly proud of, category leading, category defining.
Right.
And then, so if you take those necessary steps in the beginning when not a single fucking person's watching, those also allow you to iterate so that when people do start to pay attention, then it's like, oh wow, this brand does all this and they're this small. And so I think that was also what put us in a position to capitalize on the NBA ban happening, is because we had a clear focus.
People don't know this story, by the way. You're talking like we know this story. Because you guys, hold on, you guys were, you started brand first and you let it organically build that route. But you also had an insane amount of controversy that drove a fuck ton of interest. So you have to tell that.
Yeah, so you guys, I assume saw us walk on stage. We're not 6'10", and Adam and I's passions were always shoes and sports. So we both played basketball and football in college at USC. And we were always focused on increasing our athleticism, doing anything to jump higher, but there's never anything that could instantly do it. So we spent our time in college creating a technology that would instantly make you jump higher. I used it as my idea when I was in the entrepreneurship program. My professors told me to be a massive failure. I still have the business plan with the grade.
Love that.
And so we started the company actually in 4 days. It will be 15 years ago. And then on October 19th, 2010, our shoes got banned by the NBA because they said it provided the wearer with an undue competitive advantage. And the reason for that is we did the biomechanic testing at a leading West Coast university's biomechanics lab, and we found that normal guys off a college campus got up to a 3.5-inch increase instantly, and elite athletes could get up to a 5-inch increase. And so basically that day, October 19th, it became the #1 news story in the world, number 2, 3, and 17 most searched terms on Google. There's over 1 million articles posted in 10 days. We sold 9 months of inventory within 3 days. And that was the genesis of the brand. And it was something where we knew it was going to be a big moment, but we did not know it was going to turn into what it did.
No, well, and now what that puts you into, because like your passion and your love is this niche that you guys are carving out. And you guys the last time we were actually on stage, if you were here, you guys just opened in New York. Yeah. You have the flagship in LA, which I almost insulted you by saying like, yeah, it feels like an Apple store when I walk in. You're like,
no, we'll take it.
Whoa. But the experience it's a beautiful experience. It's a showroom, you said, for shoes.
Well, so Ryan can speak more to it because he oversees the design aspect. But for us, we felt like physical experience is a way to prove out everything you stand for. So I mean, obviously with what AI is becoming and everything that you can do, you can create nearly anything digitally. It's immensely more difficult to do it in the physical world. And so for us, we opened the Grove November 24th, 2019. Right. Day we opened it, 5,500 people showed up to it. And 32-foot high ceilings. You walk in and it feels like you're stepping into heaven. And so in New York, we created the world of APL in New York City. And Ryan can talk you through what makes it so special. But we believe we build the most beautiful physical retail experiences in the world. Obviously, I'm biased, but if you look it up, I'm sure most of you will agree if you haven't been there. And Ryan, you could talk to why we made the decisions we did in the stones and everything else that we've chosen.
So for us, the physical experience is extremely important, and we wanted to tell our brand story in real life. The one in Los Angeles, as Adam talked about, is inspired by Los Angeles, the city of angels. So we wanted to create this heavenly space, but we wanted to take it a step further as well. And we created the luxury performance category. So we got a lot of our inspiration from fashion and the runways. People walk down the runway and come back. When you think about sport, to measure the world's fastest man, the world's fastest woman, 100-meter dash, straight shoot. We get a lot of our inspiration from automotive too. We have a partnership with Red Bull Racing, and we're #1 there. And the fastest part of an F1 track is the straightaways. And then for aviation, airplanes go down a runway and take off. So we wanted to create a space that had no turns. It felt like you were stepping into the pearly gates of heaven. We created a custom scent that goes through the space in a way that is very unique. That has this opaque, milky lighting through in the space. So when you step into it, you're stepping into our world. In New York, we opened our flagship November 9th in Soho at 75 Prince Street. It's a completely different concept. Feels like the same brand, but a different experience because it is a different city. So when you step into that space, it was inspired by the city that never sleeps. It's meant to be like a dream you're stepping into. And one of the key moments of this space is we have these 5 vanity rooms that are in the back. All are rare stones we sourced from across the world. Each one is different. And the reason why we did that was a number of things. One, the reason why we did 5 is there's 5 boroughs in New York. Each one has its own personality. So we wanted to play on that concept for the city. The other part of it too is when you think traditionally about the footwear try-on experience, it's a shared experience with mirrors that are kind of like this. And you don't have that private moment to experience something in a really unique, special way. And so we wanted to create that. So you're trying on the product in an elevated environment that has 12-foot floor, wall, everything stone that is a really amazing experience to try on an incredible product in a space that's unlike anything else there. So it really is from an experiential standpoint, told through materiality, purpose, design, and it's been really incredible.
To get to this level, to be able to have the luxury to spend on the experience, you actually have to have some sales, or else you're kind of fucked.
This is true.
It's like, oh, this is so
especially
beautiful.
when you're independent.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sitting here going like, to get to a level to have this experience is so powerful, but you have to have the numbers to back that up.
Yeah.
And when you do these things, you're like, okay, how long does it take for planning? Like, all right, we just hit our targets. Brother, you can go do some crazy stuff. Let's go to Tokyo.
Yeah.
Is it basically, what is the pattern on this?
No, so it's more or less that we build out a plan of what we want to execute against. These are the long-term goals that we want to do. Again, I'll use New York as an example since it's the most recent one. And so our goal was to build these anchor experiences on the coast. So Los Angeles is our hometown. Our headquarters is down the street from here. Yeah. So we're in close proximity to the space. So when we're opening the Grove, we can see, okay, what's driving traffic, what's not driving traffic, what's working, what isn't working, what's the rate of sale, what's the conversion. You're able to measure the same types of things that you can measure online. Okay. And since we have a strong online business and there are our own channels, like, again, that supports a lot of what we do, same with the wholesale aspect. But the goal is like to build the brand and build a dynastic brand, right? So in those, when you're doing something like that, you have to make bets on yourself for the future. And the only way you can do that is if you have a predictable part of the business. So it's like, it's not something that we super talk about publicly, but
sure.
A lot of the things that drive the business is our core collection. So it's really predictable. We know when people are going to come back to buy black zip lines, white zip lines, black bliss, navy breeze. So the core aspect of the business drives a significant chunk. So that makes it so that's predictable. Then you have the seasonality of the business. We do 4 seasons a year. So that's the exciting stuff, like the shoes that I'm wearing, the shoes that Ryan's wearing, the shoes that you're wearing.
Oh,
so
geez.
these are the exciting ones. These are the moments where, okay, there's lower quantities in it. It's what drives demand. It's what drives that constant pulse that a brand has to have, because communication's important, right? So if not, you're just selling somebody something, they're not buying into it. You have 17 pairs of APLs. It's because you believe in us, you believe in the team we have, you believe in the brand, you want to support it, and you want to perpetuate it. And so when you have a predictable recurring customer, when you have a strong core business and your brand means something to somebody, you can invest in these future projects that you believe in. They're not all going to work. Sure. But you have to take the chance, because if you don't, you don't mean anything. And so for us, specifically as we're building a category, again, we start making these bets when we're over 10 years into the business. So we're not making significant financial wagers when we're 5 years in, just figuring out, okay, it's starting to work, because we didn't bet it all on black for something that wasn't at least somewhat predictable. But we did make these decisions where, to differentiate ourselves as a brand, we have to do this. And again, it's, if you don't generate it, it won't happen.
In your space of it's a very competitive space in general, right? Not the luxury area, the niche that you're carving yourself, but just shoes along the way. Is there any people that you're kind of like looking left, looking right, going like, oh, these guys are doing some interesting stuff?
I mean, the way that we always viewed it is, I mean, we use 2 different ways to describe it. There's these 2 pillars, one being sport and performance, the other being luxury and fashion, and we're the bridge that connects the 2. So we can live uniquely in both worlds because it's at the core of who we are. Or it's like a Venn diagram. You have one circle that is sport and performance. You have the other that is luxury and fashion, and we're sitting directly at the center. And so that's something where we're intentional in the purpose behind it. It's a competitive world that we live in, but it's a massive ocean, and we can be this paradise or utopia within it. And as long as we're committed to that vision, it also allows you to build the physical experiences. It allows you to have the team excited to create the best possible product, because they understand what we're doing, what the landscape looks like, and what's going to continue to make us special, and people buy in and feel that deep connection. Like, our favorite thing is people wearing the product, and the fact that you say you have 17, which is fucking amazing, and we love it. And so that's like,
yeah, I bet you did.
Yeah, I know. But aside from the sales, that's the thing that really excites us, is because you have a deep connection to it, and you're trusting in the product that we're creating and understanding that we represent something special. Because if we didn't, you wouldn't have bought that many, because you wouldn't have felt the connection. So I think that's the thing that's beautiful about the market, is it's large enough that you can really be something incredible that is unique.
And to where you're talking about admiration, I think like specifically on like DTC, Twitter, and all these other places, a lot of the brands that people aspire to be, or these brands that have around 3 to 5 years, have these exits. For us, we've always been inspired by dynastic long-term brands. So like that's where, again,
who do you put in that category?
I mean, you could put, I mean, I'm going to say things that are pretty, not common, but like,
sure,
you could, but like, you think of like an Hermes, right? It's family-owned brand over a long period of time. Obviously, a portion of it, they're public now, but for a really long period of time, they made these decisions where like hard decisions in the moment, very challenging, but like look at the payoff. Like they're a company that does, I think, close to 10 billion, that's worth in excess of 200 billion. Jeez. Right? So like you don't get that by 3 to 5 year exit plan. You get that by making difficult long-term decisions. I mean, there's plenty of other examples, sure, but we've always been inspired by the dynasty, not by the short-term one. And I also do believe that if you have the resources to do it, if you don't have the resources to do it, you can't do anything. But if you have the resources to do it and you're making the right decisions for the brand long-term, people will pay you more in the short term if they are trying to acquire whatever they're trying to do, because they want to realize the back end of whatever they're purchasing too. So I think that for us, when you talk about like other brands or whatnot, it's really more so the mindset than specific, this brand does this. It's just like, how do you build something that's dynastic? How do you build something that stands the test of time? Because in 15 years, you're going to see the ups, the downs. You're going to have these huge moments. You're going to have these really low moments. And I think like great brands are ones that can stay pretty even keel over this, like when you zoom out, not when you zoom in. Zoom in is fucking messy. Zoom
always
out, it looks great. And so I think that that's something that's always inspired us, is that these brands that have been able to see go through so many iterations and world turns and still mean today what they mean tomorrow. I mean, we're, not to get off topic, sure, but like we're the two of the faces of Rolls-Royce. And Rolls-Royce has always inspired us, because what Rolls-Royce means in the past, present, and probably in the future is really consistent. And so like that's something that has always inspired us.
Well, what's interesting on like the product side, and I do generally have 17 pairs, because the colors are as audacious as you want to be, or they're as simple and as beige-tastic as you want that to be, right? Yeah. So like, the range is pretty wild depending on what else you want to add to it. And so if I'm wearing a lot of Breeze, or if I'm wearing a lot of, even the ones where you guys did a limited edition with the zip ties.
Yeah.
So
zip lines.
Zip line, like that's a white shoe with some small pops of color. Like I think the range across the board in choosing the colorways, is that something that you guys are very intentional about per SKU, or is it like, you know what, this is what's been selling, let's just make sure this is that way in the new style?
Oh no, it's very much color per SKU, really intentional in the process. So build out the color story each season, understand not only the color story for the season, but how it's going to be applied to each silhouette. One, thinking about it from the consumer perspective, but a lot of times it truthfully comes from our just personal desire. Like, we make the product in the end of the day of what we want and what we want to wear, and it's our belief that if we're this passionate about it, our team, and when I say us, I mean sure, us and our team. If we're this passionate about the colors, why we're doing it, we feel like we have a unique perspective. And each silhouette has its own personality in the way that people wear it, the way they experience it. So it is really fun to come up with the stories and tell them in unique, special ways. And we all have our personal favorites, and it's always the most exciting moment is when the samples arrive and we get the reaction of getting to see the product for the first time in those colors that you dreamed would look a certain way. Sometimes it blows you away, and sometimes it's not exactly what you think. But then having the whole team in the office and seeing what people are drawn to, that does inform how we're going to go to market with it. But sometimes it's a color that we knew was going to be a home run, and other times it's one that you never would have thought would have got the traction that it did, and it just goes on a run. So it's fun from a creative standpoint.
With as we're on our way out, is there anything that you guys would like share of like someone's building a brand that aspires to kind of continue to grow and actually get to the point where you're making cultural moments rather than just a product? What would you say to the ones kind of in it?
I didn't hear the last part.
So a lot of brands, they create a product because they want to sell, they want to have a business. Not many people get to the other side where like, I'm building a cultural thing around this product.
Yeah.
For those that are trying to go from product to cultural movement, what would you say? How do you get there?
I think you have to be willing to embrace the moment. So like when we've had a couple of different moments that have really spoken to that. And if you look at like the ban by the NBA, in that moment, we knew the moment we were in, we leaned into it, and we went after it a certain way. There's the flip side of it where if you think about like what we're doing with F1, and you could probably speak to that in a really great way, but you have to understand that moment, that approach, and who your brand is and the voice that you're going to put into the world, and respect it, because people understand when it's coming from an authentic spot.
I also think it's F1's a good example. I know we're running out of time, but there was a unique thing. We first entered into F1 in 2016, and the goal when we entered in 2016 is we felt that it would ultimately become a relevant sport in the United States. Like, this is our domestic market. We're a global brand, but this is our home market. And we felt like if we entered in any chance, it was a lot easier to ride a wave of a sport that we could then dictate how it looks, the surfer looks on top of it, than having to create the wave and then create the surfer. And so we looked at it as a big opportunity. We entered with the last place team in Formula One. That was to build the heritage in there, so people say, you know what, APL is in Formula One. It's the most luxurious sport in the world. There's an affiliation there. Nobody in the US really cares about it yet, but we believed they eventually would. Fast forward to 2023, partners with Red Bull Racing's F1 team.
Smashing it.
First year they go with APL. They have the most successful season in the history of Formula One. #1 season in the history for a Formula One driver with Max Verstappen. First year that they're wearing APLs. Huge moments for us in Drive to Survive this season, and obviously what's coming over the next couple years will be incredible. But when you talk about how do you go from a product that you're just selling something to these cultural moments, I think with TikTok and some of these other things, you can get lucky and create something yourself. That is much less predictable than if you see something where you say, okay, this, while it looks like can be a large opportunity, is nowhere close to where it can be. And if we put our creativity, products, minds, effort, and then mix that with luck behind this thing that's happening, it can go from, you treat it as an exponent instead of an addition thing, and you think that you can really be that exponential aspect to it. That's what we felt we could do with Formula One. So there's been other things in APL, but we don't have 15 years to talk about it today. But that's the most, like, again, culturally relevant one right now. We felt that the thing that we're going to do, and you'll see what we do over the next season, because we have some really exciting shit planned with Red Bull this year, that again tie into that cultural aspect, but we felt like we could change the conversation, change the narrative, and do it in our way, and own a section of it. And if you do things specialized really well, you can build really large global niches, and that's basically what we did.
Well, next year we're having you come back. We're just doing a talk on Red Bull. Thank
We'll
you, gentlemen, very much, guys. Thank you.
Sounds good.